Turn back with us now. Turn back to a time when the movies were much younger and, like all youthful things, full of fun and high spirits. Down that long, dusty road, the clowns are coming. The great, voiceless, irreplaceable clowns who rock the world with laughter. Most of them are gone, but they have left their shadows behind. So come back with us now. Come back to that time of wonderful nonsense called the Roaring '20s. Come back to the golden age of comedy. Behind that curtain, the world is 30 years younger, and an unsmiling king presides over his loony domain. A rugged, gray-maned king who has already ridden the escalator of success from Boilermaker to chief of the first laugh factory, the father of American screen comedy, Mack Sennett. In 1924, when these only slightly exaggerated scenes were taken, the Sennett studios were already in their second decade of inspired madness. Their specialty was the delightfully improbable, like this lion in The Office. Their gags were completely visual, a form of wit that has all but disappeared from the land, but one which experts now agree is perhaps the most imaginative and enduring comedy of all. The lion has fled the scene, and the king himself has long since retired. But movie fans still fondly remember such daring innovations as the Mack Sennett bathing beauties, in whose ranks many a star was born, and who did so much to liberate the American woman from the Mother Hubbard bathing suit. Sennett Studios were a place of wonderful illusion, where a daring rider could gallop out of the West without moving as much as an inch on the old back lot. Indeed, without even bothering about a horse. And far from trying to hide their bag of tricks, the Sennett technicians made them part of the comedy. Pride of the lot was the only revolving stage in Hollywood, a monstrous merry-go-round and treadmill which kept the scenery moving behind the comedians. Hurricane gusts from the wind machine sent bits of paper flying past the camera to help create the appearance of swift and violent motion. The director is Vernon Dent. The dapper man about the stages with the roving eye is Charlie Murray. But in Sennett comedies, the pursuit of beauty was often interrupted by the appearance of the pursuer's wife, usually played by Louise Carver. The result, with the busy studio itself as a backdrop, is a kind of slapstick which proves that motion pictures are meant to move and that action speaks louder than words. Now Senate kids one of his own money-saving customs, stealing shots of actual happenings to cut into his comedies. Get a load of that peekaboo lens. It was perfectly natural for the camera to doze off with the cameraman. And who could deny such things might really happen when they happened right before your eyes? On the firing line, the neighborhood youngsters. On the receiving end, Charlie Murray. Senate gags were created by the maddest squad of gag men in entertainment history. Each day they were locked collectively into a penthouse office, deprived of heavy food and strong drink, and guarded, cajoled, and browbeaten by the old master himself. Here, selected from the output of a decade, are some of the results. In The Hollywood Kid, Charlie Murray, having failed to obtain a confession from the small fry, is forced to spank them all. Well, almost all. In Wandering Willie's, Billy Bevan innocently prepares to enjoy a delicious bowl of oyster stew and ends up in a desperate battle with a wild oyster. Muscle-bound music in a memorable boarding house concert, Billy Bevan and Davy Morris combine rock and roll with rip and tear. Street Blues, dashing Billy Bevan seems to heed the call of the open road. But alas, fate's fickle finger has flicked him into a different role, the office janitor. Billy's boss is Andy Clive, who took a boomer in bloomers just when the girl started wearing slacks. Meanwhile, Billy is cleaning up with his new superpower torpedo vacuum cleaner, originally designed to pick fat ladies off massage tables. With each tick of the ticker, Andy gets sicker. Now in comes a slicker. Soft-hearted Jack Richardson and his toady Vernon Dent watch Andy play with the poison bottle and make side bets as to how long it will take him to take it. Well, that kills that bet. In pops another well-wisher, Edgar Kennedy, one of the 7 original Keystone Cops, later to win fame and fortune as a master of the slow burn. It's a stick-up,
Billy is marched in, and soft-hearted Jack makes tracks for outer space. A perfect escape, except for one small miscalculation. Jack forgot they were on the 20th floor. Vernon is reminded of his mother's advice. If you have a bad companion, drop it. In circus today, the background is the tent show circus, which, like comedy itself, has almost vanished from the American scene. Billy Bevan plays a dim-witted daredevil in the pudgy clutches of Cupie Morgan. The stunt for this afternoon is a low dive into a trial-size swimming pool. It's a cinch, thinks Billy, but he doesn't reckon with the calamitous cupidity of the callous Cupie. Basking in the spotlight, the blindfolded Billy's ready to go. But Cupie has to make one minor adjustment. Now Cupie's mad because Billy busted his brand new swimming pool. So Cupie runs after Billy. Billy's pal, the elephant, runs after Cupie. And in a few split seconds, we're off with chariots, circus wagons, charging horses, toppling acrobats, panting pachyderms, and roaring lions on one of those crazy careening pursuits which became a trademark of the golden age of comedy, the chase. The Mack Sennett comedies, extras had to know how to take it. Madame Stella, the circus queen, is dressing for the matinee when her maid suddenly gives notice. Marie, calls Madame Stella, come powder my back. My, Marie, you're rough. This plucky young actress, giving a perfectly controlled performance with a lion as her co-star, is Madeline Herlock, who was later to marry the Pulitzer Prize playwright Robert Emmett Sherwood. So long, Mrs. Sherwood. Mack Sennett's arch rival was Hal Roach, who late in the 20s unveiled an immortal team, Stan Laurel and Oliver Hardy. Ironically, as individual comedians, Laurel and Hardy had been around since the movie's early days. Laurel had once starred, but had been reduced to featured player. Hardy had never risen above supporting roles. Then in 1927, they were accidentally paired, and almost overnight became the movie's most popular comedy team. Stan and Oliver were never to find much favor with the critics, but the public loved them. When they performed an act as simple as climbing a pole to read a street sign in the dark, gales of laughter swept round the world. Not before or since has anyone scaled a wall like Oliver Hardy. The second 100 years in which they played jailbirds with a long time to roost was one of the earliest of the Laurel and Hardy comedies. Hardy had not as yet quite acquired the full roundness of physique that was to characterize him later. A couple of visiting painters knock off for lunch, and an idea creeps into Laurel and Hardy's minds. They'll turn their coats, swipe the brushes, and pretend they're painters too, before the guards discover they're gone, gone, gone. Just as freedom seems completely within their grasp, Stan and Oliver become aware of a pair of suspicious eyes. The chips are down. Their futures hang in the balance. They must prove that they're really painters. And prove it they do. In We Slip Up, Laurel and Hardy starred as henpecked husbands, making an elaborate withdrawal from their suspicious wives. The boys have just explained that they're merely going to the picture show, and of course the wives believe their every word. Downtown, two young ladies are getting a shoe shine when fate and an electric fan blow them into a great adventure. No bonnet remains under a car for long, not with gallant Oliver there to retrieve it. Naturally, it was no more than hospitable for the girls to invite the boys up to dry up. And in these cozy surroundings, the spirit of fun playfully raises its tousled head. Urges the debonair Hardy. Be bohemian. Oliver is soothing his ruffled hostess when, you guessed it, in pops her boyfriend, an unforgiving character named Nasty Nate. In this emotion-charged moment, who should come prancing down the street but those human bloodhounds, the wives?
Battle of the century demonstrated a rule of natural science. If someone slips on a banana peel, innocent Oliver is sure to be holding a banana. The pie in the face had been originated by Mack Sennett in the earliest days of his Keystone comedies. By 1928, when this film was made, it had become a movie cliché to be avoided by the better comedy makers. Then Hal Roach produced a pie-throwing comedy to top all pie-throwing comedies, one in which every little pie had a meaning all its own, and an essentially simple act was endowed with infinite variety, like the variations on a theme in a symphony. In short, the pie-throwing comedy triumphant. This is it. Musicians decked out like the spirit of '76. Fife and drum a congressional candidate into the kind of dusty, sleepy, Midwestern town that has totally disappeared since these scenes were made some 35 years ago. Here satirizing a backwoods campaigner is a man of a type that has, alas, all but disappeared as well. The cowboy who grew into an actor, humorist, and philosopher, and who became at last an American legend, Will Rogers. In this period, Will was still fresh from his triumphs in the Ziegfeld Follies. He kidded congressmen, presidents, and kings, and never offended a soul. His wit contained no insult or malice, yet it dissolved pretension with the cold light of logic, and in its simplicity, spoke the language of all. In a Hal Roach comedy of 1923 called Uncensored Movies, Will Rogers portrayed a small-time lecturer exposing the behind-the-scenes secrets of Hollywood before a pop-eyed, gullible audience in some remote and forgotten hamlet. This gave Will a wonderful opportunity to parody the biggest stars of that far-off time and the most successful of the then-current pictures. Smack into Sherwood Forest jumps Robin Hood, as played by the immortal Douglas Fairbanks, who's played in turn by the immortal Will. The Fairbanks version of Robin Hood was sweeping the country, and crowds everywhere laughed at this timely spoof. But no one laughed louder than Will Rogers' good friend, Douglas Fairbanks himself. Men dance back into the forest, and for the intrepid Robin, game to the heartstrings, only one stunt remains: getting out of his safety belt and down from that big bad tree. In reality, of course, Fairbanks was a great athlete, and Rogers, the ex-cowboy, was a pretty fair acrobat himself. But that just made this little scene all the funnier. In the 20s, a wide-brimmed hat and checkered shirt meant Tom Mix, a misunderstood hero who was forever being chased by the sheriff's posse. Tom was brave, nonchalant, true blue, and, oh yes, game to the heartstrings. The occasional blemishes on the screen during this short sequence are not spots before your eyes. The original negative of this 35-year-old classic was already partially decomposed when it was reprinted to preserve for posterity what is probably the last existing record of Will Rogers' considerable prowess as a trick writer. Tom Mix swings this away. The posse swings that away and heads for Krausmeyer's Canyon, the bottom of it. At this point, Tom would have ridden into the sunset if it hadn't been the middle of the afternoon. Behind that wall of feet lurks Will Rogers as Ford Sterling, chief of the original Keystone Cops. While law and order snooze, Metaphor the maid is reading 3 weeks when Mad Morris puts the snatch on her purse. In those days, you hired a nursemaid to tickle and a dog to mind the baby. Mad Morris is gaining, so Metaphor puts in a call to the police. To Patty's part, the old-time comedian could produce a whole dictionary of motions just to answer the phone. Here in reasonable facsimile come the Keystone Cops, led by their intrepid commander, brave, swift, gallant, and
You named it Game to the Heartstrings. In this little episode, we come full circle as Rogers kids Sterling, Roach kids Senate, and Comedy kids Comedy. When the Keystone Cops were on the loose, it was no fit time for man, beast, nor bakery shop. The plot thickens as it develops that Mad Morris is the ringleader of a band of desperate Tin Lizzies. The Lizzies wheel about. In a twinkling, the pursuers become the pursued. And across a forlorn, forgotten field on a day so long ago, Will Rogers runs away into memory. Out trots the track team of fair Sunnydale College. And in the ranks, a girl not to be forgotten, one destined for stardom, Carole Lombard. Carole would rather powder than train, and this disturbs her coach, Daphne Pollard. College films were popular in the 20s, when everybody from baby to grandpop wanted to go collegiate. The big race is announced. Proud Sunnydale's hopes are pinned on Carole. Daphne holds aloft the starting gun.
It was a clean start. Carole running easily, forges to the head of this fine pack of 18-year-olds. Fanny brings up the rear. Carole seems to have it won. But wait, she's pausing, breaking stride. Muriel of Pripmore's going past. Muriel of Pripmore's in the lead, and it's Muriel of Pripmore to win. Carole to place, and plenty to show.
Daphne lectures Carole on school spirit, which in the movies at least is all that college has ever taught. Now the final event of the afternoon with the score tied 50-50. Carole's in the lineup with a chance to redeem herself. The coach's pleadings ring in her ears. The will to win swells in her breast. The love for lovely old Sunnydale beats in her heart. Her boyfriend cheers in the stands. But even so, Carole's having a rough time taking those hurdles.
Now with the hurdles behind, Carole's coming fast. She's past the pack. She's neck and neck with the leader. They're matching stride for stride. Carole's edging forward, and she's over the line. The winner! Oh, what a glorious day for Sunnydale.
Behind the celebrants, a chain forms to grow ever longer and whirl ever faster. But all things must go, and soon it will be gone as the age of flappers and flaming youth is gone. And a girl named Jane Peters, who became Carole Lombard, and who loved life so well, and died so tragically. The lights of Broadway glow in the descending night, the Broadway of 1929. A cab pulls up before a swank hotel. Two doormen named Laurel and Hardy bobble about, but look inside that cab. Perhaps you recognize the girl. This bit player is to become one of the most publicized women in the world. Her platinum hair, exquisite figure, and breezy manner are to create a new kind of movie heroine, the first of a glamorous line that includes today's Marilyn Monroe. Her name, Jean Harlow. Her role in this Hal Roach comedy called Double Whoopee was small, but it was a kind of role you couldn't help noticing, and she filled it so well. It provided Jean Harlow with her first real break. Though our subject is comedy, grow serious we must, for we are about to meet the most versatile of actors, a man of 1,000 roles, all of them different, and 1,000 faces, all of them the same. A man who could make Barrymore blush and von Stroheim grow pale. Behind that final towel lurks Ben Turpin. Here Turpin plays one of his most famous characterizations, that of Rodney St. Clair, the international playboy and heartbreaker. In real life, however, Ben was staunchly conservative. He bought an apartment house, and though his salary rose to $1,500 a week, he got up early each morning to act as janitor before riding the streetcar to work. At this time, a scene from The Merry Widow was shocking America. In it, John Gilbert made love while blindfolded musicians played. And if John Gilbert could have blindfolded musicians, so could Ben Turpin. Lulled by the sweet strains, Rodney St. Clair glides into a dance called My Reverie, for music hath charms to soothe the savage beast. Later, across town, an irate husband thinks that worm Rodney has been nibbling at the apple of his eye. He'll not come around here again, the husband mutters. Is he always to escape scot-free, that mad, irresistible adventurer, Rodney St. Clair? Glockenspiel Gulch was the kind of a town where a man could fall into trouble in his sleep. Scourge of this clapboard metropolis was Mowbray the Hombre and his outlaw band. Mowbray feared but one man, and here he comes racing to the rescue, Peruna Pete, the pint-sized peril, formerly a teller in a piggy bank. Peruna rode tall in the saddle by standing up. Movie fans, don't be fooled.
Behind that clever disguise is Ben Turpin as the traditional Western hero. Gary Cooper, Gene Autry, Roy Rogers, Ben taught them all they know. Girls, get out the handkerchiefs. In his next role, Ben Turpin plays a mere man willing to sacrifice all for a woman. Innocent Ben tells slippery Harry Gribben that he'll confess to save little Nell. Yes, Slippery's the real culprit. In charges Ben. I did it, he shouts. How much is missing? 10? 20? The cash register's 50,000 short, says the sergeant, and you look guilty to me. Ben turns to Nell. Scram, you crummy crook, she whimpers. It's the unkindest cut of all. You'll hang for this, growls the sergeant, and by George, so he does. While Ben's nursing a sore throat, in creeps Slippery to steal Nell like he stole the dough. Come with me to Hoboken, he mutters, but the police have overheard. In the good old days, justice was swift. You'll honeymoon in Hoboken, says Ben, but you'll honeymoon with me. Iris out. Now, an episode of sheer cultural delight. Ben Turpin as mythology's great god Pan come to earth to prance through woodland glade with a mortal woman. As the old wives tell it, this dance can only take place when St. Swithin's Day follows Michaelmas Monday in the green hills of Grunt. What grace, what poetry, what avant-garde surrealism. Back to grim reality, and Ben Turpin on the run as Fearless Nudnik, the movie stuntman. At his heels is an insistent camera crew which wants him for a scene they're shooting. Fearless is 39 years old. If he keeps on running, he may someday be 40. Wow, says Fearless, I've fallen into heaven. But the camera crew has him, and heaven was never like this. Fearless is giving a sterling performance when director Harry Gribben learns there's a real fire in town. In the early days, film companies would rush to the scenes of actual fires, floods, earthquakes, and parades, push their actors into the action, and write stories to fit later. Here, by the way, is another for the memory books, the horse-drawn fire engine. Fearless is getting lonely when along come a playful cat and dog to keep him company. Off go cat and dog to caper elsewhere, but Ben's staying put. Luckily, there's an air hose just within reach. Meanwhile, arriving at the fire, the director gives Irene Lentz, as the leading lady, a prop baby and tells her to run into the smoke and flame. The firemen make trouble. The nerve of them bums, yells the director. They'll spoil the shot. And so, as he sinks into the deep, we bid a fond farewell to Ben Turpin.
On a hot, crowded summer Sunday, Laurel and Hardy pull out of a line of cars into what some film historians believe is one of the funniest short comedies ever made. It was produced by Hal Roach in 1928. Its supervising director was Leo McCarey, who went on to win Academy Awards for The Awful Truth and Going My Way. Its photographer was George Stevens, who turned director himself and created Shane and Giant. Its title was Two Tars. Yes, that's Edgar Kennedy. Stan and Oliver, as sailors on shore leave, have taken up with fast women in slow traffic. We needn't say more, for like most great silent comedies, Two Tars speaks for itself. Old-time movie makers knew how to begin with a simple, believable situation, then build and build until the whole world seemed caught in a special kind of insanity. This one is building like an atomic chain reaction. Notice the way that Laurel and Hardy fever spreads to the second line of cars, where Pipsqueak battles with Truck Driver. In steps a leader of men. Come on, move on, boys, move on.
crowd, hot and impatient, demands, "Get that junk off the highway!" Upon this Sunday scene happens a perplexed policeman. One look at the uniform and the girls silently melt away. "Who started this?" asked the cop. "The sailors did," answers the crowd. "Aha," says the cop, "a couple of troublemakers. You birds are under arrest. Now the rest of you move out of here." The little devils. "Wise guys," says the law, "get going, and no funny business. I'll be right behind you, see? Follow them sailors." Follow them sailors. Everybody, follow them sailors. Follow them sailors. Sorry, officer, she blew. A train hurtles through the night, carrying in an upper berth one of the funniest, yet certainly the saddest of all screen comedians, the unforgettable Harry Langdon. Below, his new bride gets set for slumber, for Harry's on his honeymoon, an event which apparently hasn't in the least ruffled the infantile innocence of this most unique of clowns, who one critic said had the face of a fiendish baby. Harry faces up to the perils of the Pullman with the savoir-faire of a 3-year-old cast adrift in a hostile kindergarten. Langdon's style was completely intuitive. In real life, he was almost as childlike as the character he portrayed, and he rarely knew the plot of the picture he was making. Yet today, long after his passing, he is remembered as one of the 4 greatest comedians in the 60-year history of the motion picture.
His bride's thirsty, the little darling. And so begins the next chapter of the horrible honeymoon hazards of Harry. Skittering before the approaching conductor, Harry opens the front or windy end of the old-type Pullman and looses a hurricane. Comes the dawn. The passengers gather themselves together like shipwrecked castaways on a storm-swept isle. And Harry's off to the train dressing room. While his colleagues raced through elaborate gags at breakneck pace, Langdon moved hesitantly through situations that were both simple and human. Of him, it has been said that he could do more with less than any other comedian. Harry could make returning to his seat an achievement roughly comparable to scaling Mount Everest. In comes the sheriff with the meanest, toughest prisoner in all the land, Hardpan Hank, arrested for murder. Langdon looks at him with the gaze of a youngster confronted by the boogeyman. On a handcar alongside the speeding train races Hardpan's pal in a daring plot to help him escape. "Hold on to this bird," shouts the sheriff. "I'll run out and nab his buddy."
Don't worry, palsy, confides Hardpan. Everything's taken care of. We'll blast our way out of this together.
This short film was made by Harry Langdon in 1924, when he was at the threshold of international success. Within 5 years, his comedy instinct seemed to fail, and he rode a rough toboggan to obscurity, heartbreak, and an early death. A close associate summed it up. The little fellow was the most tragic figure I ever came across in show business. In the golden age, a happy source of humor was the animal comedy. This form of fun lives on today only in the movie cartoon, where because it is far less realistic, it is also far less amusing. One of the most hilarious animal episodes ever put on film was this nightmarish encounter between a tail-tied lion and an apron-string-tied family man named Charlie Chase. When Andy Clyde ran out of human companions for checkers, he called on the family cat. Andy also showed why cats aren't used more often for this purpose. They're too darn good. Blame cat. I'll cut down on her milk. Cameo, the Mack-Sennett dog, never played poker with the boys, but he was the best canine kibitzer in all of Canarsie. Slippery Harry Gribben, the villain of this piece, looks at his hand and discovers he's just an ace away from a royal flush. Of course, Slippery could draw for it, but that would be the hard way. And besides, he just happens to have one in his shoe. Billy Bevan, who's Cameo's master, tells his dog to sneak a hound's eye look at Gribben's cards. Slippery Harry's slick and quick, but Cameo's slicker and quicker. Nix, nix, boss. Nix, nix. Gribben's being outwitted by an adversary with short hair, big spots, and a sawed-off tail. Get that mutt-mutt hurry out of here, snarls the outraged Slippery. Under the table, Cameo works his wicked wiles. It's the switcheroo, the old army game. Doggone. Slippery smiles with that smug security that comes only to he who holds the top hand in the deck. All bets are down, and that's every buck in the joint. You go first, says the gallant Gribben. Just a minute, says Slippery. 10 of diamonds, jack of diamonds, queen of diamonds, king of diamonds, and 3 of clubs? Cupie Morgan, who's Billy's silent partner, counts the take. But Hades hath no fury like the cheater cheated. Wham! Cupie saves the money, and Cameo tries to save Billy by putting the bite on Slippery Harry. There goes Billy, to rendezvous by the old hook rug.
Ah, there you are, says Harry. Just in time for another facial massage. Cameo appraises the situation. His teeth are tired and it's hard to get a grip on Gribbon's shiny pants. He's got to get help. When Cameo digs into a matter, pity the petulant policeman. Dirt's getting splattered all over a member of that illustrious corps called the Keystone Cops. The law's plumb tuckered out, but Cameo knows how to apply the whiplash of icy indignity, and the chase is really on. One cop mightn't be enough, muses Cameo. I'd better bring reinforcements. In the 20s, when this film was made, a dog called Rin Tin Tin was one of the most successful stars in film. Little Cameo was never to reach the heights of movie fame, but he could do everything that Rinty could and maybe more. Why, Rin Tin Tin never snatched a skirt in his life. Cameo's brought help, all right, the entire police force. But this rescue's worse than the peril. Billy decides he'd rather be punched than pinched. Cupid drops the bag and out flies the money, smack onto the back of a passing turtle on its way to Schlapkohl's Lake. Of course, Cupid knows from nothing, the Dummkopf, but Cameo has spotted the whole thing. He'll save that bundle of fives before Abe Lincoln gets his beard wet. Nearby, policemen relax from pounding their beat by beating their feet. And who should pop onto the track but the unholy three? The boys decide to make up and divide the dough, which by now may be floating in a bowl of turtle soup. But no, three slickers turned suckers stare in horror as little Cameo writes the perfect end to this story by proving that maybe the world should go to the dogs. Down that inevitable street, which became so familiar to moviegoers it seemed to be in their own hometown, strolled two past-the-hat musicians, Stan Laurel and Oliver Hardy. Put Laurel and Hardy on a simple street, and anything can happen. Like almost all the Laurel and Hardys, this film was produced by Hal Roach, who started with Universal Pictures as an inexperienced actor in 1913. By the next year, in those fast-moving times, Roach owned his own company, which continues in the family down to the present day. Watch where you're going, says Oliver. Aha! A music lover. The disappointments of the day proved too much for poor Oliver, and it's all Stanley's fault. Flat. Curtain lowers, the clowns depart. Hail and farewell.
We will never see their like again. This is the end of a memory.